Hey, I'm Ashley Jackson, and this is Push the Next Generation, your Gen Z coded guide to power and politics. Today we're breaking down, scratch that. Today we have a special episode because the episode is launching on Inauguration Day 2025 and MLK Day, and we have to cover all of the things. Keeping in line with doing things a little differently, no news intro today. Frankly, we are living the news, and I'll be back with the tea next week. Before we get started, I will acknowledge that I'm coming to you from a different setup today. As you may know, I live in Los Angeles and we are navigating a traumatic climate disaster, more wildfires and devastation than I could possibly fathom. I've temporarily relocated because I'm a chronically ill baddie, as the kids say, and the smoke and air quality have been unbearable. Though in the midst of this catastrophe, I am proud to share with you all that as an Angelino, I am witness to the giving spirit of our community on the ground. We are rebuilding one day at a time with thoughts, prayers, time, money, resources. Humans are humaning in the best way right now. And those that aren't, I'll be talking about in future episodes. If you feel compelled, there are so many people in need who could use your support, so we will share resources in the episode notes. Thank you. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Push the Next Generation, recommend it to a friend, write a review, follow on socials at Push the Next Generation Pod, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. This week, I'll be speaking with Congressman Maxwell Frost. The first member of Generation Z to be elected to Congress, Maxwell Alejandro Frost, is proud to represent the people of Central Florida in the United States House of Representatives. As a former organizer, musician, and community activist, Frost was inspired to get to work at 15 years old after the tragic mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary claimed the lives of 26 innocent people. From that moment on, Frost dedicated his life to fighting against gun violence and empowering communities across Florida and the U.S. to get behind gun reform, including joining forces with those affected by the Parkland and Pulse shootings to shed light on this epidemic. Now, as a freshman member, Frost has been appointed to the powerful Committee on Oversight and Accountability and the critical Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, where he will fight for the issues top of mind for Floridians. Some of his recent legislation includes the End Junk Fees for Renters Act and the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, now established by the Biden-Harris administration. In Congress, Frost is committed to representing the people of his hometown in Orlando and Central Florida and being their voice in Washington, D.C. Frost is laser focused on working to deliver change and results on issues of housing affordability, healthcare, abortion rights, LGBTQ+ rights, voting rights, transportation, justice reform, climate change, and more. Welcome, Congressman Maxwell Frost. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for coming on Push the Next Generation. It's so good to see you.
Hey, it's so good to be here.
So we're going to dive right into it since this is a special episode. And I'd love to know from you, how have your experiences been as the first Gen Z member of Congress, and how have they, transformed your approach to the political landscape and representation?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I mean, obviously, the thing I always tell people is I don't aim to be like the representative of a generation. I represent my district. I represent Orlando, Florida. So I don't like come to the room and go, how do we Gen Z this up? How are we gonna get Gen Z in here? But what I do is I show up in all the spaces I go in here in DC and at home with my 100% authentic self, and that is being a member of Gen Z. It's also being Black. It's also being Cuban, like an Afro Latino. It's being a drummer. It's being I'm an adoptee. It's being adopted. It's every little part of me. Being from the South, I bring with me, and so because of that, Gen Z does have these shared experiences which have changed the lens in which we see the world and the way the world sees us. A big example is gun violence, right? I call us the mass shooting generation because really since school and since we started school, we've gone through more mass shooting drills and active shooter drills and fire drills. And that's a valid experience that needs to be heard in these halls. So when we talk about laws to prevent that and prevent that trauma from ever happening again, I can speak to it not because I read about it, not because I asked someone about it, but because I've lived it. And that's like such an important part of representative democracy. So even though I'm not trying to be like the Gen Z ambassador,
Mr. Gen
because
Z.
it the Gen Z ambassador, because it is part of who I am. I do recognize the significance in it, and I feel like I'm very respected by my colleagues, even though I'm young. I've been able to do a lot of work. Last Congress, I got a lot done for my home and for my district, and people noticed that, and they sent me back here, and it's an honor to be sent here by my people.
That's amazing. And really quickly before we move on, I'd love for you to talk about the Office of Gun Violence Prevention and what you did there, because I think it's also really important for our audience to see that, yeah, we are young, but you can have really, really wonderful things happen if you
Yeah.
put in the, yeah, can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I was involved in the movement to end gun violence before I ran for office. And ending gun violence has been a passion of mine. It's something I believe in. It's what got me into this work when I was 15 years old, over 10 years ago now. And, for me, when I got to Congress, I knew my first bill would be to create a federal office of gun violence prevention because we've never had one before. But I knew in a Republican Congress, I wouldn't be able to get the bill passed. So what I did is, like any organizer, I have a hard time taking no for an answer. And
Mm-hmm.
we took a step back and we power map and we figure out where do we have the levers of power and influence? Where don't we have it? What's possible? What's not possible? And what might be possible? And a place where we saw what might be possible and a place where we had power and influence was the fact that the President of the United States could take the bill and use it to just start an office through executive order. Now, of course, that means a new president comes can get rid of it, but hey, having that office for a few years is better than not having it at all. And so we went to the White House and we pushed and pushed and we worked with outside organizations. And we had an inside outside not tragedy, strategy. And I get a call like I forget when. I think it's like July of 2023, and they say Maxwell, the president, is going to start the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and he's your bill is the framework for it. And they invited me to go to the White House for that to introduce the president as he talked about the executive action. And I'm not one to do like photo op stuff unless I will proudly do the photo op stuff if we're getting something and we got something big. And so I was excited to be there. I remember being at the ceremony. I was standing up there and the whole crowd was all the people I've known my whole life from this movement. And so it's funny because I couldn't really look up because I kept like meeting eyes with somebody I knew and like you nod. So I might have look kind of crazy, not everyone. So I just kind of looked down. But it was such a blessing because this office, when it was created, people might be thinking, what the hell does an office do? Well, it was coordinating the federal response to ending gun violence through the eyes of the most vulnerable in the ways that we need to. We know incarcerating people, if that ended gun violence, we'd have no gun violence in this country because we incarcerate the most people. And so that hasn't worked. And so what we have to do is take a step back and look at how do we stop the bullets before they're shot? How do we make sure that we build communities where people don't feel the need to use a gun to solve their problems in the first place? And through community violence intervention, through health-based, healing centers and different things like that, we can actually do that. And we did it. After that office was created, we saw gun violence go down in this country pretty significantly in a lot of our big cities, but we still have a lot more work to do.
Absolutely. Well, that is just so wonderful. I commend you. I thank you for doing that work. And also, even though you're not Mr. Gen Z, I do think it really is important the representation of us doing these things because
It
our
does, yeah.
a lot of ideas, we have a lot of progression that we like to see in this country, and seeing that it
Yep.
can I think is really motivational. But we're going to shift gears a little bit. I am very privy to your public exchanges with figures like Elon Musk, which highlight obviously the concerns about tech billionaires and their influence in politics. We just saw it
Yeah.
recently almost shut down. So I'd love to know from you how you think we can safeguard policymaking to ensure the public interest takes precedence over private.
Yeah, Elon is such a loser. I mean, I don't even know what to say. But what I'll tell you, I mean, it's just the richest man online like subtweeting me is crazy.
That was
Especially at like midnight. I was like, what is going on here? Like, if I was him, I would be like, I don't know, doing something rich people do. But he wants outside influence inside of our politics. And here's the dangerous thing, is that the Republican Party has given him so much power that all he has to do is tweet. He tweets something and legislation changes. That's a problem. And the bigger problem here outside of Elon Musk is the fact that billionaires and corporations can have such an outsized influence in our democracy because of super PACs and because of the unlimited giving that they can do. And we've seen this a lot in Democratic primaries as well, where Republican billionaires have put money to oust more progressive legislators and even moderate legislators as well. And so this is a huge problem, and honestly, everybody should be worried about it. It's not just a thing for progressives to be worried about. Everyone should be worried about it. So what we really need to do is end Citizens United. And Citizens United was a Supreme Court decision that said, well, corporations, it said money equals speech. And so corporations are people, and corporations and billionaires should have the ability to spend unlimited amounts of money in political elections. And when you do that, what you do is you create an oligarchy. And what's an oligarchy? It's when the people with the most resources and most money control the entire country. And we got to take a step back because that is how we used to be ruled, right?
Hmm.
Throughout human history, the people with the most resources were always calling the shots, were always above the law. And the whole purpose of this kind of American project, even though it's deeply flawed through many different ways, but the purpose of it is saying no, no oligarchs, no kings, no queens, none of that shit. This is about all of us. We're all equal. No matter if your house is bigger than mine or not, our vote should mean the same thing. And that's the way it should be. But and we have problems, and part of the problem is the fact that even though technically we don't have kings and queens and things like that, these billionaires are able to spend unlimited amounts of money in the elections, and so we have to do something about it.
Absolutely. And speaking of kind of, I guess, what's next here, because we see that the level of power that he has, we're also entering. I mean, I'm really personally sick of going through more unprecedented times. I would love for the
Yep.
time
To not
precedented.
be
Like, I'm tired.
yeah, tired of being
Unprecedented,
part of history.
very much tired of being part of history. But with
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I'm looking at some history that's unfortunately about to be made with President Trump's inauguration, also
yeah,
coinciding with MLK Day, which is particularly striking.
yeah.
And so, switching gears, I'd love to know how we can effectively carry forward Dr. King's legacy of civil rights and social justice in today's political climate under this incoming administration. Like, what do you got for us, Congressman?
I mean, look, I think part of the reason we lost this election, people are trying to blame people and all this stuff, and moderates are saying it's because we weren't moderate enough, and progressives saying it's because we weren't progressive enough. And I'm a progressive, so of course I always want to be more progressive. But I'm going to tell you what I actually think. What I really think is that, Donald Trump did a good job of making sure that this election, for many people, was a referendum on the economy and how people feel about it. And I think sometimes we forget that COVID changed a lot and traumatized a lot of people. And because of the Biden-Harris administration, we've really come back from COVID in a strong way. But things still aren't great, right? We still have half people living paycheck to paycheck. And I think what people forget is that things were bad before COVID, right? We still had massive wealth inequality before COVID. We still had tens of thousands of people dying a year because they didn't have any health insurance before COVID. And we still had all these problems that we had to deal with that required bold transformational change. And I think people are realizing that because they're having trouble making ends meet and they're saying, I need someone to shake things up. And a lot of them bought the lie that Donald Trump said when he said, I'm gonna drain the swamp, even though the dude literally is the swamp. And so taking a step back, we have to realize that honing in on there's some like hard truths we have to swallow, right? Donald Trump built a multi-racial, multi-generational, working class electorate to vote for him. And that's a problem. Like, because those are the voters that we should be getting. Why? Because we have the agenda for them. We're actually fighting for and with them. And when I think about MLK's legacy, a part that's oftentimes left out are he talked about a lot of different evils, and the ones we always talk about have to do with racism and bigotry, but he also talked about the negative parts and worries about our system of markets and capitalism and the way that it can be used to exploit working people. And I think we really, I encourage people to really dig into that part of King's legacy where he stressed where he was very anti-war, where he was very pro making sure that we have a social agreement with every citizen, that everyone has housing and everyone has healthcare. And I think our party really needs to get to that and the core of it. And I think that's going to help us win the elections again, but also is going to help us solve the problems we want to solve. So when I think about Dr. King, I'm really thinking about this economic message he had and a message of peace that he had that a lot of people don't like to talk about because people like to cherry pick quotes one day a year. But what Dr. King encouraged us to do is fight for justice year round in many different ways. And so that's top of mind for me right now.
Thank you so much for that. I think when we're looking to this day, this episode is going to come out on MLK Day. Like, I think it's really important for us to have a different reframing. You know, we need to look at this through a different lens so we can survive the next 4 years. Speaking of survival, in the digital space, we've seen with Meta a decision to roll back fact checking policies, which is raising alarms for misinformation online. And I would just love
Yeah.
to know what your thoughts are on this move, and what legislative action we could potentially take.
I mean, to be honest, I didn't know that Facebook had fact checkers in the first place. I mean, I come I come from like a I come from a community where a lot of our moms were reading the craziest stuff off Facebook for years and believing it. So I don't, that was interesting to me. But what I will say is, I think it's indicative of this greater problem where this is what authoritarian leaders do. Is, we're worried about the bills they're going to pass, and don't get me wrong, the bills are going to be horrible. But when an authoritarian leader uses fear and that sort of ideology to push their agenda, what you find is not everything is done because of a bill or anything they directly do, but because they've created this culture of fear, people start to self-censor and people start to do what they want before they even take office because they're scared and because they want to, you know, kiss ass and lick the boot, right? And that's what's going on with Mark Zuckerberg. This guy blows whatever direction the wind is going. He's scared of this authoritarian leader, Donald Trump, and he's kissing ass. And that's why he's going to be sitting next to him or in the box with him at the inauguration, why he's hosting an inaugural ball for him, why he's doing all this stuff at Meta and changing everything and trying to be like, yeah, I'm up cool, I'm a Trump guy. Because of, the style of how Trump is and how spineless Mark Zuckerberg is. Um, and so that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And shifting to TikTok, I don't know what the future holds. We're recording this before January 19th. And so, this episode will be airing after what could be the end of TikTok. And
Yeah.
considering role in mobilizing Gen Z in the 2024 election. I'm wondering if you have any ideas or hot takes on how we can sustain political momentum if it disappears or is sold to someone who's turning out Tesla robots, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I voted against this TikTok bill. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, but now just not the fastest downloaded app is now the literal Chinese version of
Yeah.
TikTok, which is directly connected to the CCP, which was the whole point of this TikTok ban bill. And I think the interesting thing here is it goes to show what I've been trying to tell my colleagues for a long time is that there's always going to be some other app. And I
Mhm.
don't say that to diminish TikTok, and I'm also not here to fight for like a big corporation. I mean, I could care less about like TikTok as a company, to be honest. But what I do care about is the fact that so many creators and business owners have their business and livelihood through it. And I think ripping it out under the false guise of protecting our data from a foreign adversary is not only is a bad policy, but it's actually lazy legislating. Because what happens, for instance, look at everyone downloading this Chinese app is what's next? Are we going to ban that one? And what about the next app that people go to? And what I've said is the concern about our data it's like legit. It's a
Mhm.
huge problem for foreign adversaries, and I got problems with Mark Zuckerberg selling my data to the highest bidder and using my data to sell things. And we should all be concerned about our data being used by people here in the United States and abroad. And good data privacy regulations and laws will fix that, not just for TikTok, but for every other social media platform where we also have issues. But people don't want to hear that. And, the lazy thing is let's just ban TikTok. And that's, probably what's going to happen unless, like you said, Elon buys it, which is probably worse. And so
Yeah.
we'll have to see. But yeah.
Time will tell. And you
Yep.
spoke to economic concerns there, and so my last major question is also kind of in the economy space. Young Americans are grappling with student debt, housing affordability issues, an uncertain job market. And so I'd love to know from you what policies you believe could bring the most immediate and meaningful relief to us. I'd like to buy a home someday. Can't do that right now. So
Yeah, I mean, what I've been telling people, the housing crisis is the one of the top issues we got to focus on. When I was traveling last year, that's the top thing people would come up to me and talk about. you know, um, Housing problems. And I hear it from everybody, like current homeowners of all
Mhm.
ages who are dealing with insurance problems and all of this. Not just that, but I did a Looks like an
Yeah.
emoji just came up. Oh, that's cool.
This
Um,
is a
um, homeowners, tenants, people who want to own or people who are currently renting who, rent is too damn high. And I've personally dealt with this a ton. And then people who want to become homeowners, and it feels like it's just so far away. I mean, like I'm a member of Congress with a good salary and all this, and it feels far away for me too, because a lot of us have a lot of debt. And so, the housing crisis is really, I think, one of the top issues we need to focus on.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so, so much for that. And now we're going to shift gears to a fun part. So this little game is called All in Favor. It's
Hmm.
our 60-second rapid fire game, and you are our first contestant.
All
So in
right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, in politics, being all in favor is about casting your vote for those who don't know. But here it's all about owning your hot take. So, I'm going to throw out a series of questions, answer as quickly as possible and as many as you can, no hesitation. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Starting three, two, one. What's the most Gen Z coded way to start a revolution? A viral tweet or a live stream?
Live stream.
All right. Who's more likely to fix democracy, Beyonce or Elon?
Beyonce.
Cryptocurrency, financial freedom, or just monopoly money?
I have a nuanced take. I'm gonna say I'm very skeptical of it, but I wouldn't say it's full financial freedom, but I wouldn't say it's full monopoly money either.
I
Sorry,
got
that one.
No, all good, all good. All right, next. Would Gen Z's constitution include emojis or be entirely in memes?
I mean, it would be serious because we're serious people. But what I would say is memes because emojis. There's people think too many different things, right? The thumbs up emoji means one thing to a certain group of people, and to another
Mm.
group of people, it means like kind of like screw you. So like I think emojis, there's too much ambiguity.
Got you, got you. All right, next. Is the Electoral College a necessary institution or democracy's biggest scam?
One of democracy's biggest scams, 100%.
Heard that. What's more believable, aliens in Area 51 or bipartisanship in Congress?
Um, Sometimes it feels like aliens in Area 51.
I got you. Would a Netflix reality series about Congress be must watch TV or a total flop?
I mean, you don't even need to turn on Netflix. You can just turn on like, oversight committee stuff and see people fighting. We just had a crazy fight today where Nancy Mace told Jasmine Crockett like, "Hey, you want to step outside or something like that?" She wanted to fight, which if Jasmine fought her, I mean, it just wouldn't end well for her. But either way, you don't need
Absolutely.
to. You can watch the real thing and it'll be entertaining.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we're almost done. Which would bring more sanity to life on the Hill? Free therapy, karaoke night, or banning Marjorie Taylor Greene from Twitter again?
Because she's still here in person, I would say free therapy.
Heard that. All right. And then our last question is the two-party system, relic of the past or our only hope?
Not our only hope. I mean, I do. Yeah, I guess I would say it's a relic of the past. I mean, but it's not a relic. It's like our system, which is the thing that sucks. But I do, I've traveled so much last term and to all these countries that have multi-party systems, and it just feels like such a better system for many different reasons. So I'm really in favor of kind of having multiple parties, but um, I'm not sure that'll ever really happen, and I'm not in favor of like third-party stuff now that puts us at risk of losing to, fascist. So.
Three more. Well, I thank you so much for coming on Push the Next Generation. I hope that this is a wonderful episode for all of us to take in as we navigate the next 4 years ahead. Do you
Yeah.
have any last insights to share on how we can best push the next generation forward?
Run for office. We need young people to run for office, and not just Congress, but all different seats, school board, city council, everything you can think of. So there's a website, and if you're interested in running for office, you can Google "run for something." Just literally type that in, "run for something," and you can learn how to run for office. And we just need more young people running for office.
That's amazing. You might be speaking to your next colleague right now.
Never know. Just don't run in my district.
Well, thank
I'll
you so
beat you.
much.
No.
Thank you so, so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'm sure we will talk soon. I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed the game vibe, so I think that we're going to bring that back. Thank you so much for tuning into this very special interview. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Push the Next Generation, recommend it to a friend, follow on socials at Push the Next Generation Pod, and please be sure to leave us reviews and comments. We'd love to know what you're thinking. Thank you so much for watching and listening. See you next week on Push the Next Generation. And in the meantime, do whatever you need to do to get ready for our next 4 years. I'll be here waiting. This is Ashley Jackson, signing off.